Let's get creative. Hi everyone, welcome to Talk and Chalk. I'm Beck. I'm an assistant principal in Southwest Sydney. This is my channel where I just share my tips and bits of advice on anything education related, and today I'm going to get into something creative. I talk lots about, literacy, numeracy, leadership, job applications, all those sorts of things. And I haven't really touched on those other KLAs that we, often leave to the side. And I think that's the most disgusting phrase I've ever heard in our system, other KLAs. Can you think of anything more degrading than your entire focus area of teaching being regarded as an other KLA? So, creative arts though. It's an area that I actually really like embedding across our learning because there's just so much to be gained from it. There's mathematics, there's writing, there's reading, there's talking, there's listening, there's debating, there's interpreting in all forms of creative arts. I studied creative arts for the HSC. I found that I could never ever create what was in my head though. I just didn't have that skill to get from the head to the hands to what I wanted to create. It never looked exactly the way I wanted it to. I did have a bit of a portfolio that I was proud of, and I've kept some of my artworks over the years, and unfortunately as you get older and you have kids and you run out of room, those things kind of dwindle off. So I'm going to get into a particular artist study that I love doing with my kids, and I've done this with various ages, and I really think this would be applicable kindergarten to year 12. I think you could easily modify this to be able to suit your children's needs. So before I get into introducing this artist, I just want to remind everyone that all of my links and everything are in the description below. You just click on the little box to open it up to follow me on social media. I don't sell anything. I don't spam anything. If you ever want any of the resources that I'm referring to, or if you can't find something that I'm referring to, just send me a message on social media. I'm happy to chat and point you in the direction that I'm referring to. If I'm never that clear. Excuse me, I'm still kind of getting over the cold that I had, so I've got that husky voice still going at the moment. And it's really hot here at the moment. If you're one of my overseas followers, we've hit a bit of a hot streak in spring at the moment, and in Australia we're all a bit little like this, trying to shake it all out. So this artist that I came across in 2014, I think was when I first came across her. I'm pretty sure it was via social media. It was just via a article link about someone doing something unique and different, and she's grown dramatically. So her name is Alexa Meade, and she's in America, and what she does is she takes 3D things in our world and transforms them into a 2D perspective. So the main way she does this is by painting people and then photographing them. And when I say painting them, I mean physically painting them, painting on their skin, on their hair, on their clothes, on their accessories, and then having a painted background to go with it or a scenario with it, and then photographing it to make it look like it's just a painting. So I'm going to take you to her website, which has better examples of what it is that she does, and then I'm going to talk about how I did this with my class and what we gained from it. So let's have a look at her website. So if you go to alexameade.com, this is her website. This is what comes up, and you'll see straight up there's a video with a bit of an overview of what it looks like when she's in action. And this has just been built up over, the years of her work, which is amazing. And you can see, she often works in very different scenarios, different backgrounds, and even though it's got a very identifiable style, it always comes off really different, which is what I like. And you can see more specific artworks if you go down below. So, this is her in action. And if you go down below, and I've zoomed out, and I mean, if you see on there, you'll see that quite often she's working with fully nude people, which is why you need to be very careful about which images you're using and what you're showing the kids. So I'm just going to zoom in to show you where I usually start, which is with the classics. And this is how I first came across her artwork. And the very first one that I saw was this one, Transit. So obviously he's been painted up and he's just out on a bus. and the work that relates to it is this one. So this is meant to look like a singular painting, when in fact we know it's a person that has been painted and then photographed, but it takes away that perception, that 3D perception that we have of things, and kind of makes it look two-dimensional. And this was the best one of all. This is Blueprint, and you can see it looks like a painting of a person sitting in a chair that happens to have their shoes off, but when you look at the work in action, I'll just go back to it here. This is Alexa painting him up, and this is the clothes are painted, like everything is real and it's painted, and there's some great video footage of this too. So this is Blueprint in action. He's being photographed, but this is, video of the scenario as it plays out, and you can see that it's really cool the way this happens. The painted shirt, and this is all a process. It's really cool, and I honestly don't know how much she maps this out, but she bases it all off shadows and lines and looking at that whole 2D 3D perspective, which is just really cool. But the whole idea of painting a person and making them look like they're fake is just intriguing in itself. So there's some really cool artworks in here. The kids always really respond well to this one just because it looks so cool. The fact that, his glasses are painted up, and this background here is not a flat wall. It's like a sunken in space to be able to give it that effect. And sometimes you need to look at the behind the scenes photos to get the kids to get that kind of deep understanding of what's going on. So, I mean, here you can see it here. There's that background there, and her photographing him. She's not just a painter, she's a photographer, and that's that combination here that brings it to life. This is her. This is a self-portrait here called Double Take, which is really cool. And that whole, idea that you're still underneath it, and, what is it that you're actually portraying when you do that. If I go back, you'll see some of the other albums that are here, and they just look cool. They're just very engaging, and the website's taking a while to load. Here we go. So there's art on the streets, and I think the kids always loved this black and white one, more recent work that I was showing. And let's see if I can get into it. I mean, you can see, well, this is what they look like walking down the street. I mean, when I look at his face here, I wonder if I can zoom in on that. When I look at his face, it looks like a cutout from a magazine. It's just really intriguing. But then when you look at in context of the photography that she's taken, so like up here, he almost looks like he's blending into the wall. It looks like he's part of the graffiti, even though that's a real person. And there's lots of other ones on here as well that I will just give you guys time to go through. There's heaps of stuff in there that I obviously am not going to spend a whole video taking you through. So, I mean, go over to it, have an explore. I think you'll be really wowed by some of the stuff that she does. She's also done a TED Talk, so I'll put that in the description below for you. And there's also a new short film based on her artwork as well, and I'll put that in the description below for you too. All can be found on YouTube. And they're great to watch. I highly recommend watching them when you can sit down and actually pay attention to it. So not while you're folding the washing or in the kitchen while, dinner's cooking in the background or something like that. And to see if you can dedicate some time to just make yourself a cup of tea, grab a glass of wine perhaps, and sit down and just have a watch. Because I think when it comes to things like art, it's not necessarily a judgmental observation, but it's something that we seem to rush, and this is something that you shouldn't be rushing. You should be experiencing it and enjoying it and really just involving yourself in the process. When your class is doing things like this, join in. When they're coloring in, join in. When they're painting, join in. Make an example yourself, do it yourself. And if you are bad at it, if you think I'm not an artist, do it anyway. Because if you say to yourself, I'm a bad artist, I'm not going to do it, I'm not very good, I'm not a great drawer, so I'm not going to do it, kids are going to pick up on that. They're going to pick up on that and go, do you know what? I'm not going to bother trying. My teacher's not going to bother trying. I'm not going to bother trying. I think it's important that our kids see us try and fail, that our kids see us try and succeed, and that, we learn from the mistakes that we make along the way. I think that's just my personal philosophy in the classroom anyway. So either way though, you can see from the website and the videos that are on there though that she's got a really unique twist on things, and I just love the way that it makes you open your mind and question what you see in front of you, because that's what you want to do with art. If you go to any art gallery and you can go and have the tour guide tell you what the meaning and purpose and everything is behind an artwork, you know, that's one way to experience it and just have the right answer, if it is the right answer. Another way to experiencing it though is just to look and to imagine and to feel and to wonder and explore and just be curious and engage in that curiosity that you have in that moment. And I think that's what art is more about, and that interpretation that you gain from it and the reasoning for your interpretation that you have when you do this. So anyway, moving on to how I apply this in the classroom. So when we're doing this in the classroom, I would show the kids the photographs first, the images where we don't know what's going on in the background, and engage in those conversations about what you think it is, how do you think they made it, yada yada yada. And a lot of the time the kids will just think it's a painting, and then I use Blueprint, that one that I showed earlier, as the example. I showed the video of him suddenly coming to life out of that picture, and just their response to it always amazing. Always, every class I've done it with, whoa, it came to life. Have that conversation about, well, no, this is actually a person that's been painted, and yada yada yada, go through those steps. And then you start imagining with the class, guiding them through this imagination process, where they could suddenly start to think of things that they could paint and make look 2D. What would you do? And so I always tell them that they are going to pick their own thing at some point, and that's what they're going to be focusing on. But for practice, we are all going to do the same thing first, and that is leaves. Leaves is easy because it's in the yard. There's always dried leaves around. There's always growing leaves around. You can always find them, and it's just a nice easy thing to paint and collect. And kids love going outside and collecting these things, and they can pick different shapes and sizes and different colors and everything as well. And so what we do is we paint a background first, A4, A3, and we do, using that Alexa style, you know, lots of different brush strokes and colors and everything in there to be able to get a really cool background going. And then we pick some leaves, and I always make sure they paint about 10 leaves, because some of them fall apart or can't handle the paint, or they get lost or whatever. So they've painted their background, and then we go and find leaves while the background's drying, and the leaves then get painted, and they need to choose colors that are going to stand out from their background. So for example, if they've painted like a yellow and greeny background, then maybe their leaves might be blue and red, something completely different, so that it stands out and so that it looks fake. That's the idea. We're not painting our leaves green again or red or brown again like autumn changing leaves. We want them to look fake. That's the whole point. And then once the leaves are painted and dry, you lay them on top in whatever figuration that you want. This is for the kids. And then the kids need to take a photograph of it that you will then save and print. You're going to print the picture as the teacher. So you're not gluing the leaves onto the sheet or anything like that. The final product is your photograph, just like Alexa's. And then this is going to make it interesting for the kids when it comes down to angles and perspective, because if you're taking your photo, like this, while the paper is flat on the table, you're going to end up with skewed angles on your paperwork, and then you're going to have to crop it on the computer. You might end up cropping out a leaf or something like that. And if you're going on an angle like that, you'll see shadows and things under some of those leaves that are bent and curved. So what you want to do is get the kids up, whether you put the painting on the floor or if you get the kids up on a chair or anything like that to take a photo, they need to angle it. And it's so important that the kids take the photo and not you, because that's part of the creation process. The photography part is part of that artistic process. The painting isn't the main thing. That's part of it. The photography part and the printing part is the final part. So, sometimes I would stand with the kids and they would look at it, take a photo. We'd look at it on the screen and then go, does it really look the way you want it to? Let's have a look this way. I'd get their hand over hand sort of a thing and manipulate it till they got that look that they wanted. Is this what you want it to look like? Yes. Good. Save. Then me on the computer, put it all on, put it in a file, put it with their names. So I'm going to show you some of the examples that some of the kids have made in my classes. Let's have a look. So from the results of that, whatever they create, that's where your conversation is going to stem into what they can create themselves from that point. And this is why I don't share any programs I've created on this particular artwork, because of the fact that it needs to be responsive to what the kids get from it. I guide them in that first step, the leaves. I always start with leaves because it's easy, it's focused, it gives them a good example, and it's achievable for every single student in the class. The next step is them. And that's when my program would go from there. So there's no way I'm sharing a program on what I would always do next, because I wouldn't always do something next. It depends on what they wanted to do. So one class I had wanted to then do meals. And this came from suggestions in the class. They wanted to make it look like food and plates and cutlery were fake, and paint those up as well. And we did the same thing. You paint a background like a placemat, so big A3 bit of paper, and then I went and got a bunch of party plates, forks, knives, spoons, and cups as well. This is an example of one that I did. Now, if you pick up on it straight away, they were plastic plates, plastic cups, plastic cutlery. And what happened was that the paint doesn't properly, I guess, soak into that texture, which meant that I didn't get that fake effect that we did when we painted on the leaves and the paper. It still looked like I had plastic plates and I dropped paint on them pretty much. So it didn't really get that 2D effect that we were going for. When I tested it later, it worked better when I got paper plates and some of that environmentally friendly cutlery that feels like wood, because the paint obviously soaks into that. And then you'd have to use a styrofoam cup as well. So my example of that was a bit of a fizzle, and then it helped us talk about textures and manipulating your resources, and just that multimodal aspect of, you know, the things that you're creating and what works well to get the effect you're trying to get. Another class wanted to work with clothing, just like Alexa Meade. So we ended up getting permission to bring in old shirts, old singlets, and painting onto that. And some of the kids wanted to wear it. I'm not going to share those photos. But what we did was we found that they looked really cute when they were set up on a little outdoor clothesline. So one of my SLSOs brought in her mini clothesline that she uses when she goes caravanning. And we hung them, once they had all been painted and everything, we hung them up on the clothesline to get some photos and try to get that balance of, did it look like Alexa's when those people came out of their photo shoot and walked down the street or got on the bus? They still kind of look fake. Would it be the same with our singlets? So here's some photos of what it looked like on the clothesline with their singlets. Some of them came out really cute and sweet, and the photos were just adorable, but primarily the kids were so proud of what they made and they wanted to take them home. I don't know how the parents felt about that, or if the kids ended up wearing them. Hopefully none of them ended up in the washing machine with other clothing, because the whole point was just to paint with it, and we just used acrylic. Your stock standard art that you find in your creative arts storeroom. Didn't buy anything different, nothing special, nothing expensive. It was just whatever was around us is what we used. And we used thick paint brushes, thin paint brushes, just what we had on us. That was it. And I think they came out really effective, and it made kids question the way that they could apply paint to different textures and the point of doing that and the background and how you would photograph it. And there were just so many different artistic elements there, combined with perspective, looking at that perspective. And it tied in really well when we did 2D and 3D shapes in maths, because they knew they had to pick something up and manipulate it and look all the way around it and see, if I held a cube this way, perfectly this way, it just looked like a square. But as soon as I tilted it that little bit, I got that 3D perspective. And it just really reinforced that understanding about what we see in the real world around us and how it applies. So Hopefully you enjoy that and you benefit from that. I encourage you to give it a go. It doesn't have to be a long unit, and like I said, it's responsive to how your kids feel about what they see in front of them. If you're going to show the kids any videos or photography, make sure you vet it first, because you may end up with a random nipple in the classroom if you're not too careful. And I think I'll leave it there tonight. It's still too hot and sweaty in here. I haven't got the fan on because otherwise it would be too noisy. I'll leave it there. I'm going to pop my subscription button down below here. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, I highly recommend it. Click on that to subscribe. I'll put another video at the top there, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video. If you're going to give Alexa Meade a go, give it a thumb up. Thanks guys. Bye.